Welcome to Dreamworld Observatory, home of Backyard Astronomy. Today we are going to boldly go into possibly astrophotography. Stay tuned and we'll see what happens. Astrophotography. Well, the reason I want to look at that is, have you ever gone out and looked at in your telescope and you looked at the planets and you see they're in color? You see Mars is kind of an orangey red looking or rust color. You see the moon, it's kind of gray looking. If you look at Jupiter, you'll actually see the bands are in color. Clouds are in color on it. The red spot, how do you get the idea there's a red spot? And also you look at Saturn. Saturn is beautiful in color. And you're looking at it in real time in your eyepiece. Well, one day you turn and you happen to see a galaxy and it looked white. Or maybe you saw a star cluster. It was white. But you got to thinking that you've seen some pictures in books and on the box that when you bought your telescope, they were all in color. Well, you say, well, why? Is there something wrong with my telescope? No, it's nothing wrong with your telescope. The reason is, when you're looking at planets, planets are like in astronomical units in relation to distance. An astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun. That's one astronomical unit. That's 93 million miles. Okay? Now, the planets are going around the Sun just like we are. When you're picking up one of them, it may be on the other side of the Sun. So you might be getting 1.5 or 2 astronomical units or 3 astronomical units. So you see what I'm getting at there. But when you see a galaxy or you see clusters, they're outside of our galaxy. Their distance is not measured in astronomical units. Their distance is measured in light years. That's the distance light can travel in 1 year. And that's a long ways. Now, your eye can see the object in the telescope, but it can't grasp the color because the light is not getting there like you are looking at a planet. Now, what can we do about that? Well, astrophotography is it. And you say, well, what do I need to do to get into astrophotography? Well, there's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. You can do all kinds of things. First thing you need to do is to sit down and decide what kind of pictures is it I want to take. There are 4 main questions I'm going to ask today. And I'll list them right now. Is what kind of pictures do I want to take? What kind of camera do I need? And the cost, probably. The cost of all the materials, the cost of the camera, or anything that supports it. And the last question you'll need to ask yourself is, what do I want to get out of this? How far am I willing to go, or how much am I willing to pay? That's a big question. So that's what we're going to look at right now. Okay, we're going to talk about the first question. What kind of pictures do I want to take? Okay, you've seen deep sky pictures that you see on your box when you bought your telescope and when you look in books. That's one kind. Let's go all the way down. There are 3 types. There are scenic, there are planetary, and there are deep sky. Now that's the categories I put them in. Let's talk about scenic first. The scenic, to me, is one of the cheapest ways to take pictures of astrophotography. Now, if I walk outside and held my camera up to my face, now I'm talking about your digital camera, and held it up and I took a picture of the moon, you just took an astrophotography. But you took an astrophoto. Is it very good? Probably not. But let's think about this. Now, if we talk about scenic are really wide fields of the sky. You take a camera, like your digital camera, the one you take on your vacation. You could have, there's all kinds of these. There's a little flat ones you put in your pocket, and there's these kinds, and over the zoom lenses and all this. Now this is a fixed camera, which means I can't take the lens off, but it's a zoom. Now, if I want to take a picture of the sky with this, I can cut it all the way down to its widest angle. Now mine will go to 28. Some doesn't it also go up to 300. But I'm going to use it on wide field and be 28. And you can actually hold this if you want to. Not a good idea. What you need to do is to set it on a tripod and put it on wide field and turn it on. Now, in order for that to work, it's going to have the ISO is going to have to be opened up. You're going to have a pretty good ISO on it. And you're going to need the bulb setting, or maybe the timer setting, however your camera has it. Now, that's one way of doing it. That's going to be something like 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. Now, you probably can get 45 out of it. That's all. Then you're going to get star trails or tails. Another way would be piggybacking. You can piggyback this on the top of the telescope and let the telescope sit there and hold it on top of them. You'll have something that looks something like this that will mount to your telescope, and you mount the camera on it, and it just sits there. It doesn't use the telescope other than a base. Handheld, like I said, but the best way to do that is to prop your elbows up on something and shoot. Now, I will show you a couple pictures later of doing just that, of like shooting the moon or something. You can do that. The next type would be planetary. Now, planetary, you really do need to get a planetary camera. That would be like it's a low-cost camera, but they're good, and they take awful beautiful pictures of the planets. Now, you do them through the telescope. You'll mount this on your telescope in the eyepiece, replace the eyepiece and put this in there. This will replace the eyepiece. But you don't just take one picture. You'll take 50, 100 of them, one behind the other, and you'll take them at like 1/400th of a second each. So you'll take a whole bunch of them. Now with a web camera, it will be taking something like an AVI. It'd be a video, and it'd be like frames that makes a video. You can also go and take a focal. You can take this camera and you can walk right up to the eyepiece, and if you can hold it still enough, you can actually focus it and take a picture of what's in your telescope. Hard to do, but you can do it. The other method would be to mount a rig like this on your, you can mount this to your eyepiece and tighten it down on your telescope, and you mount your camera back here. Pretty much it'll look something like this animal like this, and it will be looking right into your lens of your telescope. Very heavy, so you'll have to put a major balance. Like you see this weight, I'd probably have to move it way out there to counteract this camera. Now, that is probably considered one of the cheapest ways to do it. The next one is deep sky. Now, deep sky is going to be very interesting. In order to get deep sky, now that would be galaxies, globular clusters, things like that. And these are long exposures. There's the key. You've been waiting to see, why can't I get colors? The long exposure on deep sky is where the color comes from. The longer you expose it, the more beautiful your picture is. Okay, the more data you collect. This is also the most expensive area, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, like we just said, I just talked about the kind of pictures that we want to take, and also I mentioned the type of camera we were going to use, but not all together. The next real thing we're going to look at is really the type of camera and the cost of it. For the scenic, like I just showed you, would be If you were using your own camera, that could be costly. That could be up to $400 or $500, or it could be $100, depending on what type of camera that you have. It's probably a camera that you already have. So that's what the cost is. Some of those DSLRs that you get. Now this is not considered a DSLR. This is a single lens reflex, but it's fixed lens, which means I can't take it off. The digital single lens reflex is those cameras like you see there, the Minoltas and the Canons and all this, and you can take the lens off and you can have the body of the camera. Some of those cameras can get very expensive, depends on what you want to put in one. Okay, so let's leave that. That's scenic. Remember, that's the one that you put the camera on a tripod. The other one is planetary. Now, you want to know what the cost of that is? Now, you can buy a webcam. I wouldn't suggest using a webcam. I would go to something like Orion or Meade or somebody who sells the cameras and telescopes. They have a camera that's probably what they call a lunar planetary camera. And that's what it's for. Not very good for deep sky, but for planets only and the moon, things like that. It makes great pictures. And that would be the kind of thing that I would do if I wanted to take nothing but planetary pictures. The cost, roughly about $200. But you might get the itch. Now the next thing you would have would be, for like deep sky, we talked about putting them on. The camera has to be mounted on the telescope, and not only do it has to be mounted, but we'll talk about some other things. The kind of camera that you would use for deep sky, some people do use a DSLR, and some of those cameras can run from anywhere from $500 to $2,000. You can also use what is called a CCD. Now that's the most common ones that people I hang around with or know about. They use a CCD. Now those can be bought. You can get a CCD for $400. You can also get one that costs you $10,000. It all depends on what you want. Would I buy one for $10,000? No, not me. I'm happy with the one I got. I have a CCD camera. I will show it to you. It's not a $10,000 camera. Can I take deep sky? I can take anything with that camera I want to take. I'll show you what it looks like. This is a CCD camera, and this one here is not cooled. It's supposed to be automatic, you know. But anything like this is a CCD, and like I said, CCDs can come anywhere from $400 to $10,000. You do not need a $10,000 camera to get started. This camera, it was expensive. But you can get started with a camera that looks a whole lot like this from Orion, $400. Planetary, deep sky, all of it. Want a good image? Sure they are. They're real good images. You need to decide, you need to try, I would do entry level, and those are good cameras for entry level. I would not consider them $10,000 camera on day one, I can tell you that. The next thing you will be wanting to look at is how critical am I on my pictures? How critical am I going to be? How far do I want to go? You need to really think about that. Thinking about it today and saying, I want to take the best pictures, and I want to take pictures that just look almost like I was on the Hubble telescope. That's the dream. It's not realistic either. What you want to do is to have fun. You want to take a camera, decide I want to do deep sky. Okay, that's fine. like I said, you can do deep sky with a $400 camera, if it's a deep sky camera. Or if you want to specialize, the sky's the limit. You can spend as much as you want. You need to have fun, and you need to enjoy and get the most out of what you do have. Now, is this the only cost of taking pictures? No, it's not. Once you decide what you want to do, what kind of pictures you want, you look at those 4 questions. What kind of picture, what kind of camera am I going to have to do those? The cost of the camera. There are some other hidden items that we haven't even talked about. And how far do I really want to go with this? Those questions are easily asked, and they're easy to decide on. What information I just gave you is very, in a nutshell, that's what you need to decide. Now, I just told you the cost of the camera alone. Once you decide that, then you need to look at, will my telescope work with this? Will it do with this? You have to keep this in mind. Not all telescopes will work in all these fields. You need to find which telescope will. You need to determine whether your telescope will. Can I be able to do this? First off, when you're looking at scenic, when you're looking at planetary, do I need a telescope that has a drive on it? Not necessarily, because you're taking a quick photo. You might be taking 100 of them, but you can still move it and take them. If you're doing deep sky, you absolutely need a drive on both axes of your telescope. Do you need a go-to? Pretty much, you're going to be wanting a go-to telescope when you get into really deep sky stuff, because you can't find this stuff. In fact, a lot of it you don't even see with your eyes, so it's going to be hard to find. That's an added cost. One thing that is definitely required for deep sky is auto guiding. If you're going to do deep sky auto photos and collect those pictures, some of those pictures can go lengthy. They can, instead of, remember the 1/400th of a second for a planet, and you just take a bunch of them. Well, on deep sky, you're going to be taking a minute, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes per picture. And then you're probably going to want to take 10, maybe 20 of them and stack them. That's another issue you need to think about. Okay. Now that we've covered that, I want you to think about it real hard. Now, just think about that and keep that in your head. Decide what you want to do. Talk to somebody that does a astronomy club in your town. Go talk to them. Go look at some of the equipment they got. Find out. You can find a whole lot of stuff out that way. Today I've got a little treat for you. For all you people who have a telescope, it could be old binoculars. If you haven't bought a telescope yet, that's fine. I'm going to put, if you'll look on the monitor here in a minute, there will be a list of things for this spring. We are now in the spring, and we have some items for you to look for. I've only listed, I think, about 10, I think, if I can't remember right. I don't have it with me. But there are some items that you can look for. Some of them are by name. Some of them will by the name like a nickname. So see if you can find those. And send me some comments. Let me know what you found and what they look like. Okay, as I promised, here is a starter list for spring viewing for binoculars and small telescopes. You can actually look at this and pause it, or better yet, you can replay the video and come back and pause it there and write those down. Either way, be sure to continue with the rest of the video. There's some more interesting things coming up. Okay, here's some examples of astrophotography. The first one you're looking at is the moon in lunar eclipse. It was taken by hand using a regular digital camera. This is Mars, taken afocally with a digital camera at the eyepiece of the telescope using that little mounting device. This is the moon taken with a CCD camera mounted on the telescope. This is Venus, also taken with a CCD camera on the telescope. The next three photos are Saturn, taken at different years, also with a CCD camera. Notice the very increase in size that you see as we go along, and also the clarity. Now this is when Saturn appeared edge on. First time I've ever seen it. I was really fascinated with this view. This is Jupiter. And I have to admit, this is one of my favorite pictures of Jupiter. Notice that you can actually see 4 of its moons, and very good picture of its bands. Coming up here is Uranus. If you look real close, you'll see a green dot kind of moving across the screen. That's Uranus. Okay, and here comes Neptune. Neptune appears to be like the blue dot. That's right in the middle of the screen there. Okay, now we have a deep sky object. This is Messier 5. Notice, look real close and you may see some color in the stars. Another deep sky object, this is Messier 12. And you can definitely see some color in these stars. This is Messier 42, Orion's Nebula. We will get into some more of these and have some more examples later, but this should give you an idea of what you want to be looking for. Okay, I gave you a lot to look at today, a lot to think about. You need to think about what you want to do. You may not want to do anything. You may want to do what you're doing. That's fine. I gave you some, I gave you a couple photos of what I think I covered a couple things about holding the camera in the hand and some things like that. And I actually showed you what a couple planets look like taking planetary photography. And there was one or two there that were deep sky. So all I'm going to show you for now on those. Later on, there will be more videos that will show you. We will actually do a deep sky in here, and then we will process it together and see what we can make it look like. Like I said, think about it. Be sure to look for those 10 items and see if you can find them with your binoculars or your telescope. And be sure to let me know what you find. If you like what you saw today, click subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a comment on what you did find and what it did look like. And we'll let it go at that. Until next time, keep looking up.